over, rode the train. Mr. Woods and Mr. West would ride with us to ride. And when we get back home, most times it's going to be night. And Mr. Woods and Mr. West would walk with us. You know, usually we'd find the girl that lives nearest, and maybe 2 or 3 girls would stay in one home, and 2 or 3 girls stay at night, and then they'd go home the next day. That's how we would get back after lunch. And the main thing I want to say is that, you know, segregation was on in those days. And of course we could go to Langston, and that's where I graduated, from Langston. But you couldn't go to any other school in Oklahoma. You had to go out of the state to go to a higher school of learning. And some of them did. But some of us went to Langston. And we had one of the best high schools. Even with all of what we said we went to, we still had good high school. We still had a good high school. And I think I said we didn't have a cafeteria. And you would bring your lunch. You could do without lunch. Or you could sneak down on Greenwood, and if you get caught, you would really get into it. That's what we did. But we didn't have a cafeteria. That's what we did. But all in all, we really had a good school, even way back in those days.
How was Mr. Woods? Tell me about Mr. Woods.
Then when I became a teacher, now all that I was talking about was when I was in high school. But when I became a teacher, I was with the elementary school.
All right, we got a next person.
Yeah.
Come over here. Come over here, miss. We're going to get your...
When I became...
Race rights survivor number 8, testimony of Ruby McCormick. And Mrs. McCormick, just tell me some of the things we were talking about earlier. You were 9 years old when the riot occurred. Tell me what you were doing, what your family was doing, where you ran to or hid. Just tell me all about the riot.
Where we were, it started that night, and we were at home. It used to be 27 and a half North Jackson, but they changed it to Kenosha. And a man came by and told us that they having a race riot down there. And so my mother and all, they tried to get under the bed. And my father and myself went to bed. And so the next morning, that's when my father worked for Curtis Brown, a clothing store on Main Street. And they came after us the next day. White people, you know, came and took us. We walked around there to Madison, down the railroad track, and to the next street over was Madison. And they took us to the convention hall. That's what that's where they call the theater street. You know, down there on Brady.
Oh.
You know what's
the Brady?
Yeah, the Brady. Yeah. They call it convention hall.
Oh yes.
And so that's where they took us. And but after my father's employer came and got us at the convention hall, and they gave us bread and milk, you know, and all of that, the kids. Gave us bread and milk. Then he came and got us and took us back home, bought some groceries for us and took us back home. And then they go, but before then, when they came after us, my father had his Winchester. I guess he got his Winchester, and they took it away from him when they came after us. And then they took us to Convention Hall, and we saw Dr. Jackson. He was a doctor. His name was Jackson. He was on the steps, and he was, you know, had been shot. And so then they took us in there, and my father's employer came, and and got us and brought us back home. And then I was going to Old Dunbar School. It's the school that I was going to, and it got burned down in the riot. And I mean, I was young, so I can't just...
What about Dr. Jackson? You said this was the noted surgeon, Dr. Jackson, that the Mayo Clinic said was one of the best?
No, he wasn't at the Mayo Clinic.
But he had trained at
Tulsa.
I know, but he trained at Mayo?
I don't know where he trained.
I think
But
it's the
it
same
may-
Dr.
it may
Jackson,
be.
and he was shot in the chest.
He was shot. He was laying on the steps of the convention hall.
When you went in as a 9-year-old, you saw him lying on the steps of Convention Hall, wounded, and he later died of his wounds. So you were an eyewitness to that. I've read about it, but you saw that. Let's see, what are some other things we need to know? When you returned to your home, you said your home was not burned?
No, it wasn't burned. It just my father's Winchester was gone. We kids were saving some pennies up.
And somebody took his Winchester from him?
And they took the pennies. And my mother had that. He worked at men clothing store, but they did have holes and stuff like that for women. And she had some holes taken, and we had some pennies taken. That's all that was taken. And they didn't burn. They burned across the street some, but they didn't burn our house. See, we lived about 2 doors from First Baptist Church.
And where did it locate? In this current spot now, or?
No, it was up on the hill. That's where they got that freeway going across there now. On Kenosha.
You mean Mount Zion Baptist Church?
No, First Baptist.
First Baptist.
First Baptist.
Way back up by Pine?
It was up there on Archer and Kenosha. That's where the First Baptist Church was.
Mm-hmm.
And then we lived 2 doors down across the Tulsa Railroad.
Okay. How did that riot affect your father, afterwards? Did you all talk about it, or
Oh, no, I don't remember. So
you were young, right? So you just recovered and went back to school and all?
Yeah, we had to go back over, had to go to Book of Washington then, because Dunbar, it was on Hartford, and it got burned down, and so then we had to go to school over the Book of Washington.
Okay, so your school did burn and you did have to go to another school.
Yeah.
So that did affect
So
you.
Book of Washington.
How did it make you feel that your old school was burned down and you had to end up going to Booker T. Washington?
Well, I don't know. I guess it's just
Just something to do?
yeah, something where to go. I didn't think about, about my old school.
What year did you graduate?
Oh, I finished at night school in 37, but my class was at 31. That's when we...
Well, that's
But I
Dr.
stopped.
Franklin's class.
Yeah, he was in my class.
Oh.
You're class under Dr. John L. Franklin?
Yeah.
Dr. Franklin is the advisor to this riot commission. He's been here to a couple of our meetings. So.
He was in my class.
Well, you
He
have
was
a
in my room.
very distinguished classmate.
Do you have any pictures or yearbooks?
No, of the ride. No, I don't.
No, not the ride, but just life in general, any family portraits.
Yeah, I got just a big one, kind of big picture like a family.
Because one thing that we're working on at the university is to get our eyes view of what Greenwood look like. We got some of the businesses, most of the businesses, but as far as the home life in Tulsa and folks just growing up in the Greenwood district. So we might be calling on you to come over and put your pictures on videotape instead of taking them out the house.
And so, see, I was young, and so it's not too much that I remember shooting. Oh, a man got shot. He ran between our house and the next house, and they say he got shot, but I didn't, see him, because we didn't come out of the house at night.
They made you hide and stay and be quiet and keep the light. Did your folks keep the lights off and keep quiet
at night?
And
they were having a picture. A drama at the Booker T was having it at the Dreamland Theater, and we wanted to go, and my mother wouldn't let us for some reason. the riot hadn't even started, but for some reason she wouldn't let us go.
Well, that helps more than you know, because we heard, you know, I'm a history major and I've studied it and all, and this is Rose Wright. Come in, Rose is she assists us on the Riot Commission. She's a counselor, educator, and fellow social studies person, and we've studied and read about it. We know the riot from the history point of view, but it's much more meaningful to hear it from someone who lived it. So you're more help than you know. We've talked to someone today who was 5 years old when the riot, someone who was 11, someone 14, and each of you brings something special because we see it through your eyes.
Yeah, we didn't have to run or anything. They came and picked us up and walked us over there to Madison and put us in the cars.
Yes.
And took us to the convention hall.
Some of the children actually had to dodge bullets and things.
I know.
So you were blessed that you didn't really
McCondiche, I don't know what she's sick, but she was.
We're going to go into the interview her.
No, we were talking about it the other day, and she said that they were shooting, you know, she saw the bullets and things, all like that. But see, we didn't see that.
So you were blessed.
And a lot of people, my cousin, they ran out, they don't know how far they were.
Some ran into the woods and hid. And it was very traumatic, but we appreciate it.
Clean and turd.
Did you get a chance to see the documentary that was done about Greenwood, the night the Tulsa burned? Or have you seen any of the documentaries that have been done about race riots?
I saw it. I think I saw it in the paper. That was just in the paper. That's all.
Oh,
yeah.
It's in the paper, and also it's on TV.
In the Eagle. And I see, I can't read the other paper. I don't take the World, but I can't see it now. I'm supposed to go and have my eyes operated on the 126. My left eye.
Yeah, I'm always wondering how close these documentaries come to tell the story, what happened, and so I'm always interested, how close did these folks come to bring to life?
We were walking over there to Madison to the cars, and this lady stayed across the street. She said, "I love these white folks," and her daughter said, "Shut up, Mama." She was so scared, she didn't know what she was saying, because these white men, you know, came and got us and took us around there. We didn't know where we were going or anything. See, some of them, they took out to the fairground, they called it fairground.
Yeah, we've heard.
Yeah, they took some of them out there.
Do you know of any white families that really took black families underneath their wings?
No, I didn't know about it, because the next day after we came home, my grandfather lived out in Sand Springs. So my mother we caught the streetcar and went, and she took us out there, and she came back. I know the guards and things, they sent the guards, you know, here. And the people from Muskogee, they wanted to come over here and they wouldn't let them through. So they said those people from Muskogee was real bad, you know.
I heard this story, man. The white woman that said that she saw trainloads of blacks on a train from Muskogee. They was coming in to take over.
Yeah, they were
take
bad.
up from Tulsa, bring one of the folks.
And they turned them back, they wouldn't let them come.
No. Well, I thank you for coming, and I know you have to get home, you have an appointment, but we thank you for coming out to share this with the commission.
Well, I wish I had known more, but that's all.
It helps. You were a child, but that helps. It gives us a point of view that we need. Rose, you want to run her home? I just picked her. She's not far. You can show Rose. She's for your house. Survivor number 9, Wes Young, April 16th, 1999. And Mr. Young, we're talking about to eyewitnesses of the race riot. We want to know where you were during that critical period, that event. May 31st, 1921, when the riot began. June 1st, the most awful day of the riot, and June 2nd, when the troops regained control. So tell us about that period, where you were, what you were doing, how you reacted, where you went to, how you recovered from that event.
Well, at that particular date, I was 4 years old. And my recollection is very dim. I have to refer to some stuff that came on later. Because I guess I was just toddling around and I don't remember it. And it wasn't a big enough event to traumatize me. So,
Well, just give us your general things that happened later that referred.
well, in listening to my elders talk about it, they were telling about some of the things that happened. They were telling about on the east side of Hartford was a lumber yard, and early that morning started getting rifle shots or gun shots coming over on Greenwood. And they said that the blacks had been, men had been celebrating something that happened. I guess you heard about what had happened. And they were out of ammunition, so when the fire started, they started going toward Mohawk Park. And the women gathered together and went up to Booker T. Washington High School. And that's where we was. And when the next day, around 2 o'clock, the troops came and they marched all the women and kids out to 15th and Harvard was the county fairground. And they put us in there and they gave us typhoid shot, tetanus shot, and a shot for me from the vaccinators. And they kept us out there about 4 or 5 days, or maybe longer. But in the daytime, we could come back over here and see if there was anything left that we could salvage. And they had a curfew for the blacks. After dark, they wasn't allowed back over here. Until the army came in and cleared it off, and they built tents, hang tents. The tent was the top, and the side was just blackboard or wooden side, and they would build just a big tent about half side of this room here. It was big enough for 2 or 3 people to live in comfort back in them days. And I guess if you had a larger family, which it wasn't nobody but me and my mother and my sister and my family at that time. Now imagine if you had a larger family, they could build, you would get a larger living quarter. But at that time, we stayed in those tents. I imagine 5 or 6 months, until you could establish yourself and move somewhere else where they'd built. So the tents were just temporary. And we got a tent that was on Frankfurt, about in the 300 block, just 200 block, 300 block. In the 300 block on Frankfurt Place. That's right. And we lived there until they build a place, a permanent place for us. We lived at 3, I can't even call it now. But it was right directly back here because of Christ Temple Church was right next door to where there until 1929, and then we moved out on Kenosha, 1300 block of Kenosha.
Did you all lose any relatives in the riot? Did you know of any relatives who died?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
My mother never really said nothing about any of it.
They never talked about any relatives who left or that they never heard from again?
No. My mother's family, my grandparents all lived down in around Texarkana, Texas, DeKalb, Paris, Texas. I don't remember. I remember them coming up about here in about 1933.
One thing that most Tulsans are proud of, Black Tulsa, was that Booker T. Washington did not burn down. The school, the strong focal point. Are you a graduate of Booker T. Washington?
Yes.
What year?
35.
Okay, Kevin, you want to ask him some questions?
Yes, over at the university, we're working towards putting up a historical marker for the original site of the Booker T. Washington. Its role that it played not only in the hearts and minds of its students and teachers, but also include its part in history of the race riot. What are your memories during that period of Booker T. Washington? And we got some of the pictures of the school, and it was, you see all this destruction around the school, but the school was left untouched. What do you remember most about it?
Well, the school was untouched, and just like you see, all around it had burned. I think up until Easton and Detroit were the only two blocks the black state owned that wasn't torched, wasn't burnt. All the rest of it. See now, at one time, whites lived on, so East from Eldon, what I'm trying to say, Eldon, run north and south. A bunch of whites lived there. But on north side, side of Eastern, not the north, still the north side, it was black, and the whites lived on the south side, down close to railroad tracks on back to where Mount Zion Church is.
And you spoke about the tents. Where your family got the tents? Was it from Booker T. Washington School that you got tents stayed in?
No, the tents were from the United States Army. They came in and put the tents up. And
all the Army came in and built
yeah,
for yourself?
tents.
And how many folks was in your family?
There was 3 in my immediate family.
Okay. How was to be living inside of a tent in an Oklahoma winter? Do you guys have to endure the winter in those tents?
No. Most of us was in a frame house by the winter time, because we went right, the Negroes went right to work, building right back. As soon as they could get things straight, they started building back up, and they built mostly with the business part time built with brick. It says next time it won't be the shacks that they burn out.
They talk about, speaking of that building with bricks, do you think that was a justifiable law back then? As you look back now, where they didn't let folks to build with wood and they had to build with brick?
I don't know if that was a law. It was, my opinion, it was just businessmen wanted to build with brick. if it had been a law, they could have got brick right here in Tulsa, but they had to go out of the city to get the brick and stuff.
Wow, and it was a brickyard right up on the hill.
Right up on the hill.
One of the last questions. What is your most fondest memory of Booker T. Washington High School?
This
My most fondest memory of Booker T. Washington.
signature here and you print it in.
Well,
After you
it would have to be when I finished junior high, Carver Junior High, in the 9th grade, and went to Booker T. And you can talk to Professor Woods, and he spoke to us and told us about we were getting into, I guess, high learning or whatever. We just left the junior high and was in the high school. It's gonna be a different game.
Do you remember the phrase that he used to say? Something about better than at 1%.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Wood.
No, that kind of.
Does it sound familiar? You're just as good as 99% of the people, and you're better than that 1%. Sound familiar?
Yeah.
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 All right.
Yeah, and another thing they would say, they would talk about Booker T. Washington say, what was his name? Drop, if you want water, drop your bucket.
Was it cash your buckets to the side? Paris? I know what you're trying to say.
Pull yourself up by your own
Bootstraps, yeah.
Pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Don't depend on somebody else.
Right. Cash your buckets to the wayside and pull your own self up by the buckets. All right, well, thanks a lot, sir.
Okay, we're ready for you, Mr. Gibbs. Mr. Harper.
I haven't signed it.
Oh.
You get a chance to see somebody that was famous, and now that you had a...
Well, you know, we were kids, and it meant a whole lot because there was people that was where we were trying to get. We wanted to be like those people. And we wanted to get education and be able to help because we needed a lot of help back in them days. We needed a lot of help. But with the help of the good Lord, His grace and His mercy, we made it.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Mr. Young.
Okay.
Riot interview number 10, Mr. Otis Clark of Seattle, Washington, who happened to be in Tulsa at a religious meeting, and he came by to do his interview, so we don't have to go to interview you there. We're grateful you came here. He is 96 years old and a riot survivor. Now, Mr. Clark, what we're doing today, we want specific information about how this riot affected you. You know, we're historians and we examine the materials and we know the stats on it, but nothing takes the place of eyewitness accounts, those who lived it, who breathed it, who felt it. And so that's what we want from you today. We're talking about this riot that started May 31st, 1921. Tell us where you were, what you were doing, what experiences you had, where you fled to, what happened, how did your folks rebuild, how did this affect your life forever? Just tell us about being in this riot.
Yes. The morning that the riot started, we heard the shooting here at the mouth of Greenwood. We were just a few blocks. My grandparents' property and home was just a couple of blocks up from the end of Greenwood here on Archie. And after we heard the shooting, King Jackson's funeral home was also right on the end of Greenwood, a few doors down from the Greenwood on Archie. And he had not been long purchased a new ambulance. And he was also connected with our family. In fact, he's the father of 2 sons of my sisters. And we went to the undertaker to where he was. And one of the young men that drove during the funeral sessions was also going out to the garage to get the ambulance out of the garage. And there was a old mill right across the tracks, right on the mouth of Greenwood. You could look out of the mill, they could look right over and see us over the end of Greenwood. And while the boy was trying to unlock the door to get the ambulance out of the garage, which was behind the funeral home, somebody's white shot out of that, they were up in that mill was probably 4 or 5 stories high. And they shot out of that mill and hit the boy on the hand while he was unlocking the door. And blood shot out his hand. I'm standing right behind him. And he dropped the keys and whatnot, and we ran back through the back part of the funeral home by the dead folks. 2 or 3 folks in the back part of the funeral home dead, and we had to run right by and come out the front on Archie. And out in the we call across the hill there, we call that addition. Well, that was out in the addition, and we call it there over the hill. That was out in the addition of Greenwood. And so we had to run. And I had a first cousin that she ran a little restaurant out in the addition. And we ran out there and found that her husband run a little jitney, that is bringing the folks to town, charge them a quarter, and bring the folks to town from out there on the Greenwood. And I ran out there and got there just in time. They was fixing to run off to go to Clamo. And I got in the car with them and we started over to Clamo and got out here across the Verdigris. There's a little creek of what they Verdigris, I think it's a river. But anyway, it's Verdigris between here and Clamo. We had got on the other side of the river, and that was called Verdigris then. And whites come out and with their guns and stopped the car. And my first cousin, the lady, her husband, and my auntie's husband was in the car. And they had their pistols with them, so they made them give up the pistols and let us go on to Clamo. And we spent the night over to Clamo. And the next day we heard everything had quieted down. The Army Guards or somebody had come in and kind of quietened things. And they said they're taking folks. My mother and different ones had been taken over in some ballpark or somewhere. And I didn't go to it myself, but I heard that they were taken to some place, a ballpark or somewhere they was at. But after that, I think it was a Salvation Army or Red Cross.
Red Cross.
They built us some little one-room houses.
And some tents. Did they put you all in tents?
No, we had a little wood house.
Oh, okay.
They built us a little red house, and my grandmother stayed in one, and my mother in the other. And so after that, my father was a railroad man, and he done gone to Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I made up my mind, had a young uncle, and he wanted to go too and find my father. And so when we got to, we hoboed, we didn't have nothing. They burned up our house though, and killed our little old bulldog. And so we didn't have nothing. We didn't have nothing, and we hoboed to, it says, up to Milwaukee. By the way, went through Chicago and went on out to Milwaukee. But we had a little experience there that I'll tell you about. That I think it was Italians or something, dairyman. And my young uncle put me up to go beg him for some food because we was hungry. And so I went up and begged this man for some food, and he's very nice, and he made us stay for breakfast. And they fixed a nice breakfast for us, and at our dinner, at the breakfast table, all them little, had 2 or 3 little kids, just stout and fat as they could be, and they served us all wine. We wasn't used to that, but yeah, we'll give it. Then after breakfast, he taken us down in his cellar and showed us barrels of wine. Whoa. Yeah, he had barrels of wine down in his cellar. He had a big dairy there. He had the machinery and milking his cows and stuff like that. So after we got through with that, and we hoboed then over to Milwaukee. And when we got to Milwaukee, my father done moved then and gone to Los Angeles, California. And then he was working for Hollywood folks. Let me see. Anyway, he was working for one of the movie stars out there in Hollywood. And we came back to Tulsa. And when we got back to Tulsa, my grandmother had got a letter from him in Hollywood. And we made up our mind we will try to go out and find him. So me and another little old boyfriend of ours that went to school together, we made up our mind to go out there and try to find him. And sure enough, we did. We went out and found him, and he was in Hollywood. He was working for some of the movie stars. And so... Did you hobo to California? Yeah, we hoboed. Okay. And I seen one of the biggest, beautiful pictures we saw was orange groves. Oh. When we was up on old freight box cars. And then it went down from one of the little old towns there, Boston, and got out in the valley, going up into Los Angeles. But they have orange groves. And it was one of the most beautiful pictures we'd ever seen. It's a very big orange groves. And then when we got to Hollywood and found my father, and that was on a Sunday morning, and they was going down to the beach. We had a colored lady that had a restaurant down on the beach in Santa Monica. And so they cleaned us up and put us in that Cadillac and taken us down to the beach. And then the woman had a dining room, and after we played a while, they give us a nice dinner. So we was big shots here. It was dinner. So I stayed in California then. But that about, we got out there about 1922 somewhere now.
And you never came back to Tulsa then?
No, I lived in Los Angeles then. I worked with an old boy called Stephen Fitch. You ever heard of Stephen?
Sure.
He picked me to buddy with him.
Oh.
And I butlered for Joan Crawford. I served Clark Gable and Charlie Chapman out there in the movie section. Yeah, Step picked me to buddy with him. I didn't pick him, he picked me.
Well, I heard that he used to come to Tulsa a lot.
I didn't know about him coming to Tulsa so much, but at that time we was mostly working in the movies, and then let me see, he worked for some of them clubs.
What about Joan Crawford? How was she to work for?
She did pretty good. We did pretty good with her. I didn't stay long, but anyway, she was nice with me while I was there.
You had said earlier that during the riot, your stepfather disappeared, and he never. That's right. You never heard from him again.
We didn't have nothing from him.
Did you go to the police or any city officials to try to find out where he was?
No, I didn't. But the folks, the older folks, I was about 18, but I heard the old folks say that we couldn't find him nowhere. And, they say others too. But I know he died.
So during the riot, he was alive, and
Yeah.
before the riot started, he was alive?
Yeah, he was working. He did most, I think he did most contracting and building work. Let me see, Tom Bryant was his name. But we never heard from Tom Bryant anymore after the riot.
Well, that's one of the things this Riot Commission is doing, trying to get an accurate account of the deaths, try to locate where they were. If we get funding through this Rockefeller grant, there may be exhumations, and they may do DNA and all that, and someday may tell you whether they have found this missing stepfather all these years.
I know one thing, they never did anything about it, helping us build it again.
That's one thing this Riot is looking into, this issue of, I know insurance didn't pay anything.
My grandmother also on their property, they built the Joe Hodges storage. That her name was Ellen Clark and Henry Clark. They built Tulsa's biggest storage on was named Joe Hodges storage. That's fireproof storage. That was on my grandmother's property. And they give her $3,500 for that $3,500. And we went out on Norfolk and bought a little half acre from Tom Gentry. A half acre.
Tom Gentry was a real estate guy, wasn't he?
He kind of dealt with real estate.
Yeah.
Yeah, he dealt with real estate.
And I heard he did very well back then.
Yeah, and he was the one we bought the half an acre from out on Norfolk then.
Now, you mentioned that your cousin had a cafe on Greenwood. What was their names?
Bertha Black.
Okay, was their cafe destroyed?
Yeah, everything mostly was destroyed now.
Were they able to rebuild it?
No, they never did rebuild it.
What was the name of the cafe, do you know?
I don't tell the truth about it, I don't remember what they called that. But they did pretty good business out there right now in them days.
Okay, turn it. Oh, did you want any information on Booker T. Washington?
Yeah.
Are you a graduate of Booker T. Washington?
No, but I was transferred from Archie over here. I see we had a little school. Let me see, here on what is the name of that little street? Is right over here from Hartford.
Hartford.
Maybe was it Hartford? Anyway, I think it was from Hartford, but that's a little school when they built Booker T. They just had built it.
So
And they transferred us from this little school over here on, I think it's Hartford. And they transferred us over there to this little school. I mean to Booker T. Washington when they first built it. They just got through with it.
Was that the white building or the brick building?
Brick building.
And how did it look back then?
Looked pretty nice then. It looked pretty nice then. That was something new anyway to it.
What do you think why we heard stories about the school wasn't untouched by the riot? Do you have any ideas why they didn't mess with it, they destroyed everything around it? Why come they didn't mess with that young school?
Well, way I heard them say that they must have, before they got around to doing too much, after they done destroyed the little stuff on Greenwood here, they said sent some kind of some little home guards or some kind of soldiers was come in, and they kind of squashed the thing and stopped them from burning up things. So that may be some reason why some of the things wasn't burned up. That was burned up.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. It was very interesting. Okay, you want to turn that on? I need your birth month and date.
Oh, February the 19th, wait a minute, February the 13th.
13.
1903.
1903, okay. Well, this was very helpful. I appreciate it.
All right,
Glad you
now.
came.
And I know lots, but I
Well, you told us about.
Dunbar, that school's
Okay, I
destroyed
need
in
some
the riot.
information on you while I'm doing this.
No, it wasn't destroyed in the riot. They tore it down when they put these apartments up down there.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Do you live in Tulsa now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
I'm living in my third home up here.
Fine.
It wasn't worth stealing.
Did you have any relatives who were killed or lost in the riot?
No.
Okay. Okay, let's get started. Mr. Joe Burns, Riot survivor number 11, April 16th, 1999. And Mr. Burns is our Riot survivor who is on the Oklahoma Legislative Commission to study the Tulsa race riot. The law requires at least one member be a survivor, and Mr. Burns is our survivor. He attends the meetings. He is a member of the Survivors Committee. And so, Mr. Burns, today what we've been doing is interviewing eyewitnesses, that's one of our tasks of the commission, is to record the testimony of eyewitnesses. And we are asking you to tell us what you know. I know you were young at this time, but you may remember what happened that day, or you've certainly heard your parents talk about it and others older talk about it. So just tell us what it was like that day, May 31st, 1921, when that riot started, the next day, June 1st, when it accelerated, and finally June 2nd, when the National Guard came in and regained control. And just anything else about that event that affected your family.
Well, there was a lot of commotion around, I remember. And my mom was very excited about what was going on, all the noise. My dad just got in from work. He went back and went to sleep. And she woke him up and said, I don't think you ought to go to sleep. It's too much going on. And I understand that there's a group of people going down to Greenwood to follow the commotion. You ought to go down there and see what's going on. We'll stay here and wait for you. So Dad had an old pistol around the house there. He put one in his pocket and he took off. He didn't want to go, but he came on down. Went down as far as Greenwood. Deep Greenwood, they call it. That's the Oklahoma Eagle office. It wasn't Oklahoma Eagle office then. I think it had another name. And he just hung around there to see what was going on. He heard that they were trying to lynch a black boy down there at the courthouse, six in Bowl, I believe it was. And then he came on back home. He stayed there just a little while, and he was gone for about 3 or 4 hours. When he got back home, it was just about daybreak. We had a cousin that had come in here from Dumas, Arkansas about 2 years before he came here. In fact, he had promised to look out for Dad and the kids until Dad got him a good job. And he came in, and he was really excited. He had 2 pistols. And he told my dad, whose name was Newton, said, Newt, you better get your wife and kids on out of here, because being here on this street's not going to be safe for you when it comes daybreak. He said, if I were you, I'd take these kids out to the park. Go close to the Millen Valley Track. That would have been the Golden Gate Park, which is now Dirty Butter Creek. Every time I pass it on Apache, I think about it.
Oh.
See, take those kids out of the park now. And at that time, see, when you hit the Pine, you ran into a lot of trees and undeveloped area. The railroad track was there, but on the left side of the railroad track, which would be on the west side, there was a lot of trees, thick as a jungle, all the way down to Apache and even farther. So, and they had a Golden Gate Park. This Golden Gate Park was a waterway that ran through there. And it looked like it was deep enough with enough for coverage from trees and shrubs to hide people. So there were a lot of them hiding down in there. So Dad took his family down in there, about 5 of us all together, 3 boys and 2 girls, and my mother and Dad. And of course he had his sister-in-law with him, and she had 1 kid. No, she's just pregnant. She hadn't had a kid. And her husband. And they got down in there, and it looked like it was too much light. They couldn't hide enough. And Dad thought he'd get out and do a little scouting and see if he could find a place that would give him more cover. And while he was gone, daybreak came in and light and clear. And then there was a truck stopped up to the top of the road up there, which would have been Apache. And he hollered down there and said, "Hey, what you guys doing down there?" And Dad told him he had his family down there. And he said, "When have you come up here and talk to us?" And it looked like it was soldiers, but they weren't dressed as soldiers. They only had 1 or 2 items of soldiers on, like a shirt or a hat, and wearing a helmet. And they had rifles. So Dad went up and talked with them. And Uncle Will, my uncle, went up there and talked to them too. He said, "We're going to have to take you boys downtown." He said, "No, you can't take us here and leave the women and kids together. You gotta have somebody here to protect them." He said, "Well, they'll be all right. We'll have somebody. We'll leave somebody here with them. In fact, we'll send a truck back to pick them up." So that's what they did. They took my dad and uncle away from them and left us down there in the gutter. And it wasn't long before they had another truck with some soldiers in it that came and picked us up, put us all in the truck, took us down to the convention center. Once we got in the convention center, well, they started feeding us apples, and I felt real good then. Gave me something to eat because I hadn't had anything to eat all night long. And my mom was with me, my aunt was with me, and my sister and my brother was with me. It was 3 of the kids and the 2 women folks. And we didn't see Dad anymore for a couple of days, because I heard later on what had happened to him. They had taken him out to what is now called, it's a whiskey store down there. It used to be called the Fairground.
McNulty?
And it's McNulty Park. So that's where they took him. And he was a bunch of Negro men down there. And they left him there in that park for a couple of days. Mom was working for a white family. She got in touch with them, and they went down and got him out. And brought him on back to the home. By that time, we had gotten back into the house on Latimer Court. I wondered if we were going to live there for a while, but didn't get a chance to work that out because the man that owned the house came over and told Dad that he was going to have the house. Because they set his house on fire. He was next door.
Oh, wow.
He had a lot of good looking furniture, piano and stuff like that, you know. So they just set it afire. And they didn't have time to build a house for him, but they did give him a perimeter tent. So they were living in a tent, and we were living in his only rent house.
So that affected you. You had to move out.
Yeah. So he told Dad, well, it's going to be winter pretty soon, so I guess, Brother Burns, we better, my son and I, if you get the lumber, we'll build you a house so that you get in it before the winter. And Dad had gone down and talked to a carpenter, but the carpenter wasn't available, so he talked to the fellow that sold the lumber. I think his name was C.D. Vaughn. And Vaughn told him he would let him have enough lumber to build him a house, but he'd have to furnish the carpenters himself because he didn't have any. And sure enough, the fellow that was Jones, old-time Tulsa, was living out there that we were renting from. He got his nephew, and they went out there and built us a 3-room house in about 3 weeks. Yeah, they didn't have inside to it, you know. They built a box house, and they didn't have any sheetrock things like that. They just covered the outside and put the roof on it. and they did it in about 3 weeks. And of course later on, you know, after the riot was over and he began to make more money, he got the sheetrock, hell hold in there, and he and his friends put the inside, the sheetrock in and made it double wall to protect the kids. But just the same, my sister caught, she got very, very sick during the time because she came down with typhoid fever. They thought she had pneumonia, but it was typhoid fever. And she didn't recover. She died from that. She died in the first of 22.
Oh, so that was really sort of right connected death.
Yeah, I was the oldest daughter.
Oh.
Her name was Essie. We just gotten to Tulsa, didn't have anybody to where to take her to bury, you know, so Dad decided he'd take her back to Dunes, Arkansas, and he buried her down in Dunes, Arkansas.
How old was she then?
She was 9.
9.
Yeah, she'd been going to one of the schools here. 9 years old. First sister that I lost. The first member of the family that we lost.
You know, talk about the building the houses from the lumber. Been hearing that from a number of the survivors talking about the lumber company. I think was on the other side of Orchard. There was laws that were created by the city officials that they was trying to make it illegal to build with wood. That they had to be built with fireproof material like bricks.
Yeah.
Did you see any evidence when they were trying to either arrest people or harass people for building their homes out of non-fireproof materials?
No, I didn't. Because I would have been, I was too young to be interested in that sort of thing, but I've read about it since. This fellow that Dad got the lumber from owned the lumber company. They had threatened him if he sold Dad in the lumber to build a house out there. But he was taking a chance anyway. He was a Christian man. He said, you got a wife and some kids. He said, I'm going to go ahead and sell you this lumber anyway. And he sold him lumber, and of course the fellow that he was renting from and his son built the house. But they were using tactics like that to keep blacks from being able to replace what they lost.
Let me see. Close up.
Oh, I'm gonna ask you one two questions. What year did you graduate? Well, did you finish high school here in Tulsa?
Yes.
What school was that?
Booker T. Washington, 1934.
Oh, okay. All right. A couple years after Dr. Franklin graduated.
Yeah, well, I played in band with Dr. Franklin.
Oh. What did you play and what did he play?
I played trumpet, but I was playing third trumpet, and he was playing solo trumpet.
Oh.
See, he was 2 years older than I was. And he was a much better player than I was.
What is your most fondest memory of the teachers or the school? What do you remember most about Booker T?
Well, I was impressed by 4 teachers. My band member for one, band teacher was Jet. His name is Bill Jet. And I was impressed by the Hughes, who was my English teacher, and Birdie Crawford, an English teacher, and J.T.A. West, who was a science teacher. I took science under West, and I took chemistry on him, and physics. And sometimes when it was necessary to teach me something about how to be a good citizen, he took up the whole class to tell us about that. West deserved a lot of credit for teaching kids how to walk home with girls, you know, what side of the street to walk on, and how to treat them, opening the door for them, things like that.
So those little tidbits of social etiquette.
That's right. Our teachers taught us that. That our kids probably don't get that now. Maybe some get it, but I don't know whether they would give it to all of them.
Do you remember any of the poems or sayings of years ago that probably still hold dear to you? I know one person remembers E.W. Wood's statement, 99% of you better than 99% of the people.
Oh, yeah, that was to encourage people. They were always making statements to let them know that they were as good as anybody else, twice as good as the most of them. I remember Wood used to say about his graduates, now I want to send I'm gonna send you home, because now you're finished. I've done as much as we can do for you. And whether you're gonna be a good citizen or not depends upon the kind of wood that they sent to you, sent us to, here to you. Now, if you made out of oak, you're gonna have to be an oak. That means you're gonna be good and strong. If you came out here with the Simmons or something like that, you know, like wood or elm, you're not gonna be very strong. But we all we do is improve and enhance what they send us. But we had to learn a lot of quotations all the time.
Oh.
Hughes was a man that in literature, English literature, he's the one who used to have memorized 150 words of poetry, and then any number of quotations. And he would do it. He'd make a class out of it every time he came into class in the morning. He might come in and said, "Joe, I want you to finish this for me," and he would start the quotation and have me to finish it.
Oh.
And if I couldn't finish it, I'd call on somebody else to help me.
Can you remember one of those quotations?
Oh yeah, I used to. Well, let's see. Mostly it was Shakespeare.
Oh.
I think I can't recall right now.
But that's really something that maybe that might be an answer. Those same kind of teaching ethics can somehow transfer over to nowadays.
Yeah.
We might have less problem with our children. Okay.
I want to thank you, Mr. Joe Burns, for sharing that with us. You have excellent recall, and you gave an insight that perhaps no one else has given today, so that was very helpful. Also, you brought out the fact that there were good, strong people of all races. I like you telling about the lumberman that sold the lumber. And I've talked to other riot survivors who talk about good white Samaritans. They were not all mobsters. There were many willing to take a risk. Mr. W.R. Holway, who founded the Holway company here, engineering.
Yeah.
I understand that the Ku Klux Klan went to meet with him once and ordered him to fire. He had hired some workers, ordered him to fire the 13 who were Catholics. He refused. They tried everything to run that man out of business. They tried to deny him permits when he needed them. Banks tried to deny him credit. Just anything he needed in his engineering firm, they tried to put an obstacle, but he's held up for principle. He said, I will treat people the way they ought to be treated. And they prospered, as right usually wins out in the long run. So I like that you had some good memories of people who befriended your father and took a stand and stood up even against the local prejudices. So thank you so much for that interview.
Thank you.
All right.
I was glad to be here.
Oh, good. That was excellent.
You know, I'll tell Dr. Franklin. Matter of fact, I gotta get your number, because I got a picture of you, Dr. Franklin, and myself when he was here at the Race Riot Commission a couple of years ago, I guess now.
Yeah.
And I real nice say, if I ever see him again, I have to get this picture to him. And I always run into you at different times. I'm gonna have to keep that in the car. But I was telling Dr. Franklin when going back to T-Town was aired on television. I was staying in Houston.
Yeah.
It was back in '92, I
I
guess.
appeared on Going Back to East Town.
I know. And then what I was getting ready to tell you
About
that
the poetry.
that's why I was pulling from that. I was telling Dr. Franklin that I was debating about coming back home to Tulsa, and watching Going Back to T-Town made me so homesick. I said, call Dad on the phone, like, I'm coming home. So you guys made it possible for me to make my decision about
This
coming
is
back.
precious. You're going to need that for your
Oh, yeah.
T. Washington thing.
So that's you right there.
Yeah, that's me right there. You know Paul Reed?
Yeah.
This is Paul Reed's oldest brother right here. Right here. Alfred Reed. That's Alfred Reed. He's dead. And this was James Fields right here.
Oh.
I don't think you know him. He's dead too. Most of the people on here are dead.
And who's the teacher?
Mrs. Hughes. Her husband was the principal.
Oh, okay. At Carver? No.
No.
Booker T. Later on.
No. She stayed upstairs and you know that gym, if you recall,
yeah, right.
and upstairs there. Well, the principal stayed up there, and they had their family there. She didn't have any kids, so just she and her husband stayed up there.
Wait a minute, inside the school, the principal stayed there?
That's right.
I did not know that.
That's right.
Wow.
Was there anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay,
We're ready to go.
What is your name?
My name is Rose Wright. I live here in Tulsa. I work for Tulsa Public Schools. Matter of fact, that's how I met Miss Gates.
Is that right?
And she, was a teacher there.
You look familiar, bro.
Oh, is that right? Well, nice to have met you, and thank you so much for all your information.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
I'll see you all later.
Okay, thanks, Rose. I'll be getting these videotapes to you to transcribe.
All right.
Yeah, when you said a little that piece, that quotation in there, I said, man, he got it done. Look at him go.